Uh, Good morning. Okay, still living in my car. This is how it is. Um, I had a message to deliver to you today, and it really was more like sharing stories of my childhood and my experience being the daughter of a Mason and growing up in a very, very affluent part of Connecticut. I grew up in a town called Cornwall, Connecticut, and it was a very rural town. Okay, is a typical, just like my great great grandfather's book, a typical New England town. The church was the cornerstone, sort of center stone of the community, and that was the church where my great 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 grandfather preached. He was a minister there. And my mother was my dad met my mother when he was overseas. She was the daughter of a rice farmer, and he brought her over to the United States and married her when she was 19. And if you heard him talk about how he saved her from being an old maid, it was just pathetic, okay? Because you have to remember, again, my dad was a pedophile, so 19 years old, yes, was an old maid. But he brought her over to this country, and I was born in Charlotte Hungerford Hospital in Torrington, Connecticut. The town of Cornwall is actually known for its covered bridge. It has one of very few very well preserved covered bridges that you can actually drive your car over, believe it or not, to go from Cornwall to Sharon and back again. And so the last time we went there was October of 2016. We visited my mom's grave and we saw the old house where we grew up, which was creepy as fuck, okay? Because that thing was haunted as fuck. But we drove over the bridge and we took pictures of it and everything like that. It was me and my brother and my brother's niece and my ex-husband it was October, right? And so all the leafers are out there looking at the leaves and stuff like that, and it's absolutely beautiful, because you're crossing over the Housatonic River, and it's just a lovely, lovely little town. It hasn't changed a bit. Hasn't changed a bit since I left in 1981. And the town itself is something that I missed. When I moved away when I was 15 and came to Florida, begrudgingly, I did because I was worried about my brothers. And not because I wanted to move to Florida, because the climate in Florida was completely different. I grew up, in a typical New England town. My great great grandfather fought for the Union soldiers, and they come down here, and I'm at Avon Park High School taking the same 2 years of courses that I took back at Housatonic Valley Regional High. And my history teacher is arguing with me over about how to pronounce Toussaint Louverture. She said, no, it's Toussaint Louverture. And I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't ever fit in. I never fit in anywhere. I had my own set of misfit friends in Connecticut. But in the end, you were either black or you were a redneck. And I was not a redneck girl. I didn't have my name on the back of my belt. I had huge holes in my jeans and stuff. And so I never really fit in. But so I resented moving from Connecticut to Florida. And, that kind of affected my mindset. But it was a very, very small town. But it was a very affluent town of old families. Not just the Starr family. All kinds of families, okay? And it was a part of Litchfield County. And Litchfield County is also, I would say, the most affluent county in all of America. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, okay? But if you ever saw that movie, what was it? Secret of My Success with Michael J. Fox. Okay. Oh yeah, and he's going to this woman's estate in Litchfield. Okay. All those Richies live there. And I never really felt like I fit in because I didn't understand that my family had wealth attached to it. Okay. Because the way my family lived was completely different. Okay. I just remember, of course, my dad, I told you about my dad, loan sharks and borrowing money from people, including my uncle. And then when he had to pay them back, then he just cut them off and, talk smack about them. Um, but I just remember my mother had passed away. I was going to Housatonic Valley Regional High School, and I needed lunch money. And I asked him, about lunch money. Can I have lunch money? And every time, when I asked for money for gas, I was paying rent and stuff, and he would just gripe about how he wasn't made of money. And I'd have to hear that speech over and over again. And that's part of that fear-based patterns, fear-based habits that you gather. You're just so tired of hearing about the griping, you just find it something else to do. And this was one of them. And so, at the beginning of the school year, and this happens nowadays too, your parents have to fill out a statement of income, in order to see if you qualify for subsidy-based lunches. And my father refused to do that. He's like, I'll be damned if anybody's going to ask me how much money I own or earn. And it didn't matter that we were hungry. Okay. It didn't matter at all. And so what I did was I said, oh, fuck this. I'm going to sell Avon. So I sold Avon just for lunch money. And I can remember countless times of where we were left at home to clean the house, and I was cooking and cleaning, and Michael would have to make, bologna soup in the microwave because there was no bread. And so I never thought I was ever rich. I never thought I was affluent. I never thought I came from money because I lived in a family that pretty much disowned me, wouldn't talk to me, and I was isolated in this tiny little house in Connecticut. I didn't realize that my family also was affluent because of the way they treated me. Like I was the black sheep. And so I wanted to relate to you an experience because this has to do with tarot, okay? And that the fact that I've said I've listened to tarot readers. And first of all, let me say, okay, anytime you listen to tarot, you have to use your gift of discernment. And I recently found out that there was a tarot reader that popped up. I thought, well, she seemed like she was legitimate. And of course, we're all paranoid, right? The government's out to get us, we're all paranoid, whether we're children of God or, evil children. We're right though. Okay. And so what I found was that I was listening to this woman and she's starting to make sense. And then all of a sudden she said Trump, and she was talking about how Trump was a good guy. He exposed all this stuff. And the truth of the matter is, I'm like, lady, you lost me at Trump. And every tarot reader says the same thing. Use your discernment. Okay. And the thing about me is that I have been criticized for listening to tarot. First of all, from the cult of the Seventh-day Adventists in my ex-husband's family. And now I know why, right? Okay. Because and past people like Pastor Olivia, who basically stole $400 from us. Okay. And then he passed judgment over me and Derek by saying, well, you should be listening to palm readers because of Prophet Paul, and then he preached that sermon and everything like that. And then when he knew that my distribution was coming, well, then he's back. Oh, we want you back in the church and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so I realized that, and I've said this before about watching TikTok, about watching YouTube. The Holy Spirit talks to you and tells you what's right and what's not right if you are a child of God. And so you have to use your discernment. Plus the fact that these people read for thousands of people, okay? If you click on some of these readers, they got thousands of likes, okay? Now, granted, not all of them resonate with it. They just like the video maybe, but still, okay? Not everybody's going to apply to you, and every single solitary reader says the same thing. Use your discernment. Don't make it fit if it doesn't fit. And so, I started watching tarot a couple of years. It was actually during COVID. Okay, I was a reader there, Revealing Light Tarot. I think she was on YouTube, and she was actually doing political readings. Okay, and not just the United States, because she was from Australia, and so I supported her as a Patreon supporter. And it wasn't until I started healing on the Buckingham property that I started watching my own personal tarot, like collective readings that I felt I resonated with. Okay, and but I had, and what kind of kept me from doing that was this bias that the Seventh-day Adventists especially had about reading tarot, Ouija boards, any of that other stuff. Okay, because of their mindset and the fact that they preach that, when we're dead, and then we're all going to pop up in the ground, pop up from the ground when Jesus comes again, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, and so they don't. Everything else is evil. And so, but I did have an experience watching someone read tarot when I was a child, and it scared the shit out of me. And I'll tell you why. My mother and her friend Junja Fitzgerald. Okay, they were both immigrants that came to this country. And there was another woman. It was Anna's mother. I don't remember Anna's name. Okay. They were Korean women who had married GIs and came to this country. And so they sort of were like the first seeds of Asians in Connecticut. My mom, I told you this before about my mom being a welcome wagon. She just was the Asian welcome wagon. Anytime there's an Asian woman come to the community, she would be her buddy, right? But she and my Aunt Junja and were very, very close friends. And so when I grew up, Aunt Junja had two daughters, Rena and Sumi. And it was me and Michael for a long time before Danny came into the picture. But my Aunt Junja Fitzgerald lived on Bantam Circle, and we would go to visit her all the time. And we would play with Rena and Sumi. And I was always jealous because they had this little kitchenette set, a plastic kitchenette set. I didn't have any of that stuff. And so they were very, very good friends. And there was a time when my mom left my dad. We went and stayed with Aunt Junja. And Aunt Junja actually, took care of us a lot when she went to work. I remember sitting and being fascinated because my mom didn't wear makeup. And just watching my Aunt Junja do her eyeliner, and she always did that kind of witchy eyeliner. Okay, I was just fascinated by that. And she and my mom got a job at the Torrington Company, and I remember, because my mom actually took us to her job interview at the Torrington Company. Okay, and the Torrington Company was a mainstay. I think it was a tool and die company. Okay. And she actually brought us to her interview because I remember sitting next to her in the job interview. It was me, my brother Mike, and me. Okay, and I maybe I don't know. Maybe I was 5 years old. I don't know how old I was. I was little. And she did the job interview and she got the job. But the gentleman who did her interview gave us these little tiny screwdrivers that said the Torrington Company on them. And she worked for the Torrington Company. All of this happened. All of this was about the time my dad was starting to do stuff with the Masons. Really, really obsessing about the Masons. And then he brought in, his little code book, and he was so proud of himself because he was learning this secret language. And I'm like looking at that as a little kid saying, I can read that. I can see exactly what that says. And then he was just so gung-ho. We were all going to be, because they had kids units and the Eastern Star. He wanted my mom to be an Eastern Star. My mom didn't had pierced ears. But he brought home these clip-on earrings, screw-on earrings of the Eastern Star with the Eastern Star symbol in them. And the Eastern Stars are just female Masons. Okay, let's just put it that way. They're female Masons. And I don't think my mother ever actually joined the Eastern Star. But my dad really wanted us all to be in this. Okay. And I remember watching my mom. She didn't put on makeup, but she was putting on these Eastern Star earrings. And after she passed away, my dad gave me those earrings, and I had them for years and years and years. In fact, I'm not even sure they were in the storage unit when I abandoned the storage unit. I hope to God I didn't give them to my daughter, because in the end, those fucking things were cursed. And that, that's kind of like, from a spiritual standpoint, a sort of explanation about how my life went awry for 38 years. Because I was hanging on to cursed objects. And those were one of them. They were not only cursed from my mother, but they were cursed from me. And I remember shortly after my mother got this job at Torrington Company, she was going to a party in Litchfield. Very, very affluent family. I don't even know who did it. I don't even know whose party it was. But it was in Litchfield. It was a very rich house. And I went with her. And there was a lot of things going on, One of those estates like in Secret of My Success. Maybe it was the same estate. I don't know. There was a tarot reader there. And I saw the reader reading tarot. She was sitting down at a table. And around her were all of these very, very rich people. And I remember sitting there watching what she was doing. But I kind of just passed. And my mom sort of led me around the table. I wasn't able to sit and watch. But it creeped me the fuck out. And I'm like, okay, so later on when I'm listening to my ex's family talk about the evils of tarot, I'm thinking, well, that makes sense. No, but because now I know what it was. Because this woman was reading energies. And this is what happens when a tarot reader reads these energies, because a lot of evil energies come in. And they actually pray for protection. They say, Archangel Michael, protect me now as I channel these energies. But around this woman were very, very powerful families. And they were all trying to get readings. So it was not just the energies that she was channeling, but the energies of the people around trying to get readings. And, the tarot readers that I resonate with say the same thing. They're being stalked and harassed and trolled. And that's my story too. And a lot of times when they do readings, they say, I'm a reader. Well, I'm not a reader. I don't read. I understand reading, but I don't read. And so, but I understand energies. Okay. And even as a young child, I understood that there were people around getting readings who were not good people, who were evil people. And these readers that I listen to, they're being trolled, and they're being stalked, and they're being harassed by evil people who are what we call crosswatchers. And so every tarot reading starts, and they say, use your discernment. Because you have the light of God, you can trust your intuition. And so in the case of Pastor Olivia, he was giving us a hard time about reading palms and stuff like that. And Derek comes home one night, and we're at the hotel, and it's just irate as, evil as fuck. He, tries to dump my purse, and I know somebody has gotten to him and attached something to him. Okay. And so what ended up happening was he had a couple phones, and he wouldn't let me look at him. Okay. And he fell asleep. It was like God put him into a deep sleep. And when I picked up his phone is when I realized the people who had been communicating with him behind my back. And this is why he didn't want me to see his phone. It was the same reason why people like Valerie Tollard didn't want me to see who she was, because I would have recognized her. Okay. All right. The same was true with his WhatsApp. And when I pulled up, he was in a deep sleep. His phone was ringing. I couldn't wake him up. And when I picked up his phone, I saw all these messages from these people, like Pastor Olivia, who judged me by saying we shouldn't be listening to the palm reader, you know, and so he wanted he knew my money was coming, right? He wanted to be in my life again. He wanted to be in our lives again because he knew that we had a buttload of money coming. He wanted us to join the church. He wanted me to sing, you know. But he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Derek privately on WhatsApp. And so I told him, I have no intention of coming back to this church. You judged me. And you felt me not worthy. And so I'm going to cut you off. Especially over the stuff about the tarot readers. And you know what he said? Use your discernment. It's something tarot readers say. And so I knew he was a crosswatcher. And then there was another message on WhatsApp. And it was from my friend, Anna Hausler, who sought me out a couple of years ago, pretended to be a Trump hater just like me, even bought my George Floyd masks, told me to come back and live next to her in Connecticut. And I cut her off because I said, you know, I realized she was the one who coordinated the reunion between me and my Aunt Ginger. My Aunt Ginger, who was married to Hank Fitzgerald, my Uncle Hank, who divorced, and I think he remarried someone else. But then she divorced and married Scott DeBishop. And Scott DeBishop's family owned the Torrington Company. And, you know, I remember Anna telling me how resentful she was that my Aunt Junja had basically sold herself out for money because she was very affluent. And she didn't appreciate the beauty in her own daughter, Rena. Such a beautiful spirit. And she alienated her daughter, Sumi, who didn't want anything to do with her. And Anna had set the whole thing up. She had set the reunion between me and my Aunt Junja. And that's when my Aunt Junja told me my family was rich. And she made me a meal, a huge meal, lobster tail. And my brother monopolized the entire conversation. And in the end, the first message that my mother gave me was the message for her sister, for her about her sister, the one who had taken her own life. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm remembering my childhood, and at this point in time where I'm in this driver's seat in my 88 Mercury Grand Marquis. Things are converging, and I think this has to do with the fact that I've been told I've been fasting in the wilderness. It's been exactly 40 days since I was arrested. And I'm coming out of that and I'm making friends. You know, when you go within, when you do the hermit work and you understand things about your past, the shadow work and everything like that, yeah, some of it's really painful, but some of it helps you gain a higher understanding of your role in this world, what you do, what you believe in, and how that in the end is going to get God's justice and make this world a better place. It's by sharing your experiences and listening. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great day.